He's not coming.
The officiant cleared his throat for the third time. Megan Wheeler felt the shift before she could name it. The way breath becomes weight, the way silence becomes noise. 200 people pretending to wait patiently. 200 phones angled just enough to catch the moment she broke. Daniel wasn't coming. She knew it the way a bone is broken before the pain hits. The murmuring started in the back rows. A ripple, then a wave. Her veil felt like a spotlight. Her ring finger was still bare. The bridesmaids had stopped smiling. Her maid of honor, Clara, kept glancing toward the side door like she expected someone to walk through with an explanation that would make this okay. No one did. Megan's father stood stiffly beside her, his hand hovering near her elbow. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. She could feel his anger radiating through the expensive fabric of his rented tuxedo. "Megan," the officiant whispered, leaning in slightly. "Do you want to step aside for a moment?" Step aside. Like she could hide. Like the 200 witnesses and the live violinist and the rented doves in the garden weren't all proof that this was supposed to be the best day of her life. Her throat burned. She opened her mouth to answer. "Before we dive in deeper, if you love stories where strength is quiet, choices matter, and love doesn't come easy, you're in the right place. Subscribe now so you don't miss stories like this one, and as you listen, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. This story isn't just about what happens next. It's about who we become when everything falls apart." And the chapel doors opened. Not softly. Not apologetically. Firmly. Every head turned. Megan's heart slammed against her ribs. Daniel. But it wasn't Daniel. It was Leonard Snyder. Daniel's best friend. His business partner. The man who'd given a toast at the rehearsal dinner, so smooth and gracious that half the guests had cried. Now he walked down the aisle like he owned the architecture itself. Charcoal suit perfectly tailored, ice blue eyes locked forward, jaw set in a way that didn't ask permission. He didn't look at the crowd. He looked at her. Megan's knees locked. She couldn't process it. Couldn't make sense of why Leonard, stoic, unreadable Leonard, was walking toward her like this was part of the plan. The murmuring grew louder. "What's he doing? Is that? Oh my God, is he?" Leonard reached the altar. He didn't smile. Didn't soften. He stopped directly beside her, close enough that she could see the faint tension in his shoulders, the controlled stillness in his expression. And then he leaned in. His voice was low, intimate enough to feel private, loud enough that the front rows heard every word. "He's not coming." Megan's vision blurred. Her breath caught. Leonard's eyes didn't waver. "If you want to walk out of here alive, let me take his place." The room inhaled as one. Gasps. Phones lifting. A woman in the third row actually stood up. Megan felt the floor tilt. Alive? Not safe. Not with dignity. Alive. What? Her voice cracked. She couldn't finish the sentence. Leonard's gaze softened. Just barely. Just enough that she saw something underneath the ice. Something that looked like guilt. Or fear. "I'll explain," he said quietly. "But not here. Not now." Her pulse hammered in her ears. Behind her, Clara hissed, "Megan, what is he talking about?" The officiant froze, looking between them like he'd stumbled into a thriller instead of a ceremony. Megan's father moved forward. "Now hold on. Sir." Leonard's tone didn't rise, but it cut clean through the chaos. He turned just enough to meet her father's eyes. "With respect, this isn't the time." Her father's jaw worked. But he didn't argue. Because Leonard Snyder wasn't the kind of man you argued with in public. Not when his net worth could buy the venue. Not when his voice carried the kind of certainty that made people step back. Megan's hands trembled. She looked at Leonard, really looked at him. And for the first time she saw it. He wasn't calm. He was controlled. There was a difference. "Why?" she whispered. Leonard's expression didn't change. But his voice dropped lower. Softer. "Because Daniel made a choice. And if you don't let me fix this right now, you're going to pay for it." A tear slid down her cheek. She felt it fall. Felt the room watching. Felt the weight of every expectation she'd carried into this chapel pressing down on her chest. She had two options. Run. and let the cameras catch her fleeing her own wedding. Or stay, and trust a man she barely knew. The officiant cleared his throat again. Miss Wheeler, do you need a moment? Megan's throat closed. No. She didn't need a moment. She needed an answer. But Leonard wasn't offering answers. He was offering a way out. She looked at him one more time. Saw the tension in his jaw. The faint line between his brows. The way his hands stayed loose at his sides, like he was ready to move, ready to act, ready to shield her from something she couldn't see yet. And she made a choice. Not because she understood, but because she was out of time. Okay, she whispered. Leonard's eyes flickered. Relief. Just for a second. Then he turned to the officiant. Proceed. The man blinked. I'm sorry? The ceremony, Leonard said evenly. Proceed. A wave of shock rolled through the room. Someone gasped. Someone else laughed, sharp and disbelieving. Megan's maid of honor grabbed her arm. Megan, you can't be serious. Clara. Megan's voice was steadier than she expected. Let go. Clara's mouth opened. Closed. She stepped back. The officiant looked like he wanted to run. But Leonard didn't move. Didn't flinch. He just waited. And slowly, impossibly, the room quieted. The officiant swallowed. Glanced down at his notes. Then back up at Leonard. Do you have the rings? Leonard reached into his jacket. Pulled out a small black box. Opened it. 2 rings. Platinum. Simple. Beautiful. Not the rings Daniel had chosen. Leonard's rings. Megan's breath hitched. He'd planned this. The realization hit her like ice water. Leonard hadn't just walked in. He'd come prepared. Her pulse roared in her ears. The officiant's hands shook as he accepted the rings. And as Leonard turned to face her fully, blue eyes steady, expression unreadable, posture calm in a way that made her feel both protected and terrified, Megan understood. This wasn't a rescue. This was a calculation. And whatever Daniel had done, whatever danger Leonard was shielding her from, it had already begun. But Megan didn't know that yet. She didn't know about the deal Daniel had made 3 months ago. Didn't know about the lawyers circling. Didn't know that her name, her face, had been used as collateral in a game she never agreed to play. All she knew was that the man she loved had abandoned her. And the man she barely trusted had just vowed to take his place. What she didn't know yet, what Leonard would tell her only when the doors closed and the crowd finally left, was that Daniel's absence wasn't cowardice. It was strategy. And she'd been the pawn all along. The officiant's voice felt like it was coming from underwater. Megan heard the words, something about sacred union, something about commitment, but they didn't land. They just floated past her like debris in a current she couldn't fight. She was still standing at the altar, still wearing the dress, still holding a bouquet her mother had spent 2 weeks selecting. But Daniel's absence had carved a hole in the center of the room, and everyone could see straight through to her humiliation. Leonard's hand brushed hers. Not a gesture. A signal. She glanced at him. His expression hadn't changed. Still unreadable. Still controlled. But his fingers pressed briefly against her wrist, firm enough to ground her, light enough that no one else would notice. Stay calm. The message was clear. Megan's chest tightened. She didn't feel calm. She felt like she was drowning in silk and lace while 200 people filmed her going under. The officiant paused. Looked at Leonard. Then at Megan. Shall we continue? Leonard answered before she could. Yes. Not a question. A command. The man nodded quickly and flipped a page in his book, his hands still trembling. Megan's mind spun. This is insane. She was about to marry a man she'd spoken to maybe a dozen times. A man who looked at her like she was a problem to solve, not a person to love. And yet, she didn't move. Because somewhere beneath the shock and the shame, a sharper instinct was waking up. Leonard knows something. He wasn't here by accident. Wasn't improvising. He'd walked in with rings. With a plan. With a tone that suggested he'd been preparing for this exact scenario. Which meant Daniel's disappearance wasn't spontaneous. It was intentional. Her stomach turned. The officiant began again, voice steadier now, like he'd decided to just push through and let the guests sort out the insanity later. Marriage is a union built on trust. Megan barely heard him. Her eyes drifted past Leonard's shoulder, toward the guests. Most of them were still staring. Some with pity, some with confusion. A few with barely concealed delight, the kind people feel when they witness a scandal they'll retell for years. But a handful weren't looking at her at all. They were looking at their phones. Typing. Scrolling. And in the third row, a man in a gray suit leaned toward the woman beside him and whispered something that made her face go pale. Megan's pulse spiked. What are they seeing? Leonard's voice cut through her spiraling thoughts. Megan. She blinked. He was watching her. Steady. Focused. The officiant had stopped talking. Oh. They were waiting for her. Her voice cracked. She swallowed hard. I'm sorry, what? The officiant's smile was pained. Do you take this man? She didn't hear the rest. Because Leonard's hand moved again, this time settling lightly on her elbow. Protective. Grounding. And when she met his eyes, she saw something she hadn't expected. Urgency. Not panic. Not fear. But a quiet, controlled push. He needed her to say yes. Not for romance. Not for love. For something else entirely. Megan's throat felt like sandpaper. She looked at the officiant. Then at Leonard. And she whispered, I do. The room exhaled. A few people clapped. Hesitant. Confused. The officiant turned to Leonard, relief washing over his face. And do you? I do, Leonard said immediately. No hesitation. No emotion. Just certainty. The officiant fumbled for the rings. Megan's hands shook as Leonard slid the platinum band onto her finger. It was heavier than she expected. Colder. When it was her turn, her fingers trembled so badly she almost dropped his ring. Leonard steadied her hand with his own. His skin was warm. His grip was firm. And for just a second, she felt anchored. Then the officiant smiled, strained, awkward, and said the words that made it real. I now pronounce you husband and wife. A pause. You may kiss the bride. Megan's heart stopped. She hadn't thought this far. Leonard had. He stepped closer. Not rushed. Not romantic. Methodical. His hand cupped her jaw, gentle but deliberate, and he leaned in. The kiss was brief. Controlled. The kind of kiss that looked real from a distance but felt like a business transaction up close. When he pulled back, his thumb brushed her cheek, and she realized, horrified, that she was crying. Again. The room erupted into applause. It sounded hollow. Leonard didn't let go of her hand as they turned to face the crowd. The photographer snapped pictures. The violinist started playing. People stood, clapping politely, phones still out, confusion still etched into their faces. Megan forced a smile. It felt like her face might crack. Leonard leaned in, his mouth close to her ear. Walk. Don't run. Smile if you can. His voice was calm, almost soothing, but the words themselves were a warning. Don't run. As if running was an option. As if she wasn't already trapped. They walked down the aisle together. Slowly. Every step felt like performance. Like proof she was still breathing. Guests reached out, some to congratulate, some to touch her arm, some just to confirm she was real. Megan nodded. Smiled. Said nothing. Leonard's hand stayed firm on hers. And as they passed the third row, she caught a glimpse of the man in the gray suit again. He wasn't clapping. He was staring at Leonard. And Leonard stared back. Just for a second. But it was enough. Megan's stomach dropped. They know each other. The moment they stepped into the vestibule, Leonard released her hand. The shift was immediate. He turned to one of the ushers, a young man in a black suit who looked barely old enough to vote. Clear the back hallway. No guests. No staff. The usher blinked. Sir, I don't think I have the authority. Leonard pulled out his phone. Type something. Held it up. The usher's face went white. Yes, sir. Right away. He disappeared. Megan stared at Leonard. What did you just show him? Leonard pocketed his phone. A number. What kind of number? The kind that makes people move. Her breath came faster. Leonard, what the hell is going on? He didn't answer. Instead, he glanced toward the chapel doors, where guests were starting to filter out, laughing nervously, murmuring to each other. Then he looked back at her. And for the first time since he'd walked down that aisle, his mask slipped. Just barely. Just enough that she saw the tension underneath. The calculation. The weight. "You need to trust me for the next 10 minutes, he said quietly. "After that, I'll explain everything." "I just married you," Megan hissed. "I think I deserve an explanation now." Leonard's jaw tightened. "You deserve a lot of things," he said. "But right now, what you need is to stay quiet and let me get you somewhere safe." "Safe from what?" His eyes flicked toward the chapel doors again, then back to her. And when he spoke, his voice was low, steady, terrifying. "From the people who think you knew what Daniel was planning." The words hit her like a fist. Megan's vision blurred at the edges. "What are you talking about?" Leonard stepped closer. Close enough that no one else could hear. "Daniel didn't just leave you at the altar, Megan. He left you holding the bag." Her knees wavered. "What bag?" Leonard's expression didn't change. But his next words did. "The one that's about to explode." Before she could respond, Clara appeared in the doorway, mascara smudged, expression frantic. "Megan, oh my God, are you okay? What just happened? Why didn't you tell me?" Leonard stepped between them. "She's fine. Give us a minute." Clara's eyes narrowed. "Excuse me? I'm her maid of honor. I'm not going anywhere." "Yes," Leonard said calmly. "You are." Clara's mouth fell open. But before she could argue, Leonard's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and his entire posture changed. Sharper. Colder. He looked at Megan. "We're leaving. Now." "What? Now?" He took her hand again, not gently this time, and pulled her toward the side exit. Megan stumbled in her heels, bouquet falling from her grip. "Leonard, stop." He didn't stop. He pushed open the door, scanned the hallway, then pulled her through. Behind them, Clara shouted something. But Leonard didn't look back. And as the door swung shut, sealing them into the narrow corridor, Megan finally understood. This wasn't a wedding. It was an extraction. The hallway smelled like old carpet and lemon cleaner. Megan's heels clicked against linoleum as Leonard pulled her past storage closets and a janitor's cart, toward a door marked private. He pushed it open without knocking. Inside was a small office, cluttered desk, metal filing cabinet, a window overlooking the parking lot. Leonard locked the door behind them. Megan yanked her hand free. "Start talking." He didn't look at her. He moved to the window, checked the lot, then pulled the blinds shut. "Leonard. 3 months ago," he said quietly, "Daniel borrowed money he couldn't pay back." Megan's stomach clenched. "What?" "Not from a bank." Leonard turned to face her. "From people who don't accept excuses." Her pulse hammered. "How much?" Enough that when he couldn't deliver, they started looking for collateral. The word hung in the air like smoke. Megan shook her head. "I don't understand. What does that have to do with me?" Leonard's jaw tightened. "You were the collateral, Megan." The room tilted. She gripped the edge of the desk. "That's insane." "He told them you'd marry him. That your family's name would cover his debt. That once you were legally tied to him, they'd have access to your father's accounts, your assets, your reputation." Her breath came in short bursts. "My father would never. He wouldn't have to." Leonard's voice was calm. Deadly calm. "Daniel was going to forge your signature. Use your marriage license to open joint accounts. Move money before anyone noticed." Megan's knees buckled. She sank into the chair behind her. "You're lying." "I wish I was." She looked up at him. His face was stone. No pity. No softness. Just facts. "If that's true," she whispered, "why didn't you tell me sooner?" Leonard's expression flickered. "Guilt, maybe. Or shame. Because I thought I could stop him without involving you. And I couldn't." Silence pressed down on them. Megan's hands trembled in her lap. Her wedding dress suddenly felt like a costume. A trap. "So what happens now?" Her voice cracked. "If I'm already married to you instead of him, then you're protected," Leonard said. "Legally. Publicly. Your name is tied to mine now, not his. That changes everything." She stared at him. "You planned this." "Yes." You walked into that chapel knowing exactly what you were going to do. Yes. Her chest tightened. And you didn't think to ask me first? Leonard's eyes darkened. There wasn't time. There's always time for the truth. Not when the truth gets you hurt. Megan shot to her feet. You don't get to decide that for me. Someone had to. His voice didn't rise. But it cut deeper because of it. You were about to marry a man who was going to ruin you. I made a choice. You made a choice, she repeated bitterly. What about mine? Leonard stepped closer. Not threatening. Just present. Unavoidable. You still have one. She blinked. What? This marriage can be annulled. Quietly. Quickly. But not today. Not while people are watching. Not while Daniel's creditors think you're still vulnerable. Megan's breath hitched. So I'm stuck. You're safe, Leonard corrected. There's a difference. She wanted to scream. To cry. To rip off the veil and the ring and walk out. But she didn't. Because underneath the rage and the fear, a colder truth was settling in. Leonard was right. She had been vulnerable. Blind. Trusting. And Daniel had used that. She looked at Leonard. Really looked at him. The sharp suit. The controlled posture. The eyes that gave nothing away. He wasn't a hero. He was a strategist. And she was the piece he'd just moved to safety. How long? She asked quietly. How long what? How long do I have to stay married to you? Leonard's expression softened. Just barely. As long as it takes to make sure you're untouchable. Megan's throat burned. She wanted to argue. To refuse. To tell him she didn't need his protection. But the truth was simpler. And harder. She did. Okay, she whispered. Leonard's shoulders relaxed. Not much. Just enough. Okay. Megan sank back into the chair. Her wedding day. Her worst day. And somehow, she just agreed to let a stranger decide her future. Not because she believed him, but because she finally understood the cost of standing still. Outside, car doors slammed. Voices echoed. And somewhere in the noise, Megan realized. The fantasy was over. Now came the fallout. Leonard's penthouse didn't feel like a home. It felt like a museum where someone happened to sleep. Floor-to-ceiling windows. Marble countertops. Furniture so pristine Megan was afraid to sit on it. She stood in the center of the living room, still wearing her wedding dress, and felt more out of place than she had at the altar. Leonard closed the door behind them and locked it. 3 separate bolts. She noticed. Guest rooms down the hall, he said, shrugging off his suit jacket. Second door on the left. There's clothes in the closet. Should fit. Megan blinked. You keep women's clothes in your guest room? I keep options. His tone was flat. Matter of fact. In case someone needs them. She didn't know what to say to that. Leonard moved past her toward the kitchen, already pulling out his phone. Are you hungry? Megan's stomach was a knot. No. You should eat anyway. I'm fine. He didn't argue. Just set his phone on the counter and started making coffee like this was a normal Saturday. Like they hadn't just gotten married under duress. Like her entire life hadn't collapsed in the span of 2 hours. Megan's hands clenched at her sides. Are we just going to pretend this is normal? Leonard didn't look up. What would you prefer? I don't know. A conversation? An explanation that lasts longer than 30 seconds. I gave you an explanation. You gave me a nightmare. Leonard paused. His hand hovered over the coffee machine. Then he turned to face her. His expression was still unreadable. Still controlled. But there was something underneath now. Fatigue, maybe. Or frustration. What do you want me to say, Megan? I want you to tell me what happens next. Next, you stay here. You don't leave without telling me. You don't talk to anyone, especially not Daniel, until I say it's safe. Her pulse spiked. So I'm a prisoner. You're protected. Same thing. Leonard's jaw tightened. No. It's not. Silence filled the space between them. Megan looked away first. She hated that. Hated that he could hold her gaze without flinching while she felt like she was falling apart. I need to call my parents, she said quietly. Not yet. Her head snapped up. Excuse me. Give it 24 hours. Let the initial noise die down. Then we'll handle it together. Together. She laughed bitterly. We're not a team, Leonard. We're strangers who signed a piece of paper. That piece of paper is the only reason you're not fielding calls from Daniel's creditors right now." The words hit like ice water. Megan's breath caught. Leonard's expression didn't soften, but his voice did. "Just barely. I'm not trying to control you. I'm trying to keep you out of the blast radius." She wanted to argue, wanted to fight, but exhaustion was creeping in, heavy and relentless. "I'm going to change," she muttered. Leonard nodded. "Take your time." The guest room was as sterile as the rest of the penthouse. White walls, gray bedding, a single piece of abstract art that looked expensive and soulless. Megan closed the door and leaned against it. Her reflection stared back at her from the full-length mirror. Tear-streaked makeup, wrinkled veil, a platinum ring that didn't belong to her. She looked like someone else's tragedy. Slowly, she pulled off the veil. Then the ring. It felt heavier coming off than it had going on. She set it on the dresser and opened the closet. Leonard hadn't been lying. There were clothes. Simple, practical, jeans, sweaters, t-shirts. All in her size. A chill ran down her spine. He'd known. Prepared. How long had he been planning this? She pulled on a pair of sweatpants and an oversized sweater, then sat on the edge of the bed. The silence was suffocating. No music. No voices. No laughter. Just the hum of the city below and the weight of everything she'd lost. Her phone buzzed. She grabbed it from her purse. 17 missed calls. 43 texts. Most from Clara. A few from her mother. One from a number she didn't recognize. She opened that one first. "Unknown. You made a mistake, Megan. Call me." Her hands went cold. She stared at the message. No name. No context. But she knew. Daniel. When she walked back into the living room, Leonard was on his laptop, fingers moving fast across the keyboard. He glanced up. Saw her expression. "What happened?" She held out her phone. Leonard took it. "Read the message." His face didn't change, but his fingers tightened around the device. "Block the number." What if he? "Block it," Leonard repeated. "Now." Megan's throat tightened. But she did it. Leonard handed the phone back and returned to his laptop. "Sit down." She didn't want to, but her legs gave out anyway. She sank onto the couch across from him. Leonard turned the screen toward her. It was a news article. Posted 20 minutes ago. Billionaire steps in. Leonard Snyder marries runaway bride in shocking ceremony twist. Megan's stomach turned. There were photos. Her. Leonard. The altar. And underneath, in the comments section, speculation was already spiraling. Was this planned? Did she know the groom wasn't coming? Leonard Snyder doesn't do anything without a reason. Megan's vision blurred. "They think I'm in on it." "Some of them," Leonard said evenly. "Not all." "That's supposed to make me feel better?" "No. It's supposed to prepare you." She looked at him. Really looked. "You've done this before, haven't you?" Leonard closed the laptop. Done what? Managed a crisis. Controlled a narrative. Made people disappear. His eyes met hers. And for the first time she saw something crack. Not guilt. Not regret. Truth. "Yes," he said quietly. Megan's chest tightened. She wanted to ask more. Wanted to know what kind of man became this efficient at damage control. But before she could speak, Leonard's phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen, and his entire body went rigid. "What?" Megan whispered. Leonard stood. Moved to the window. Stared out at the city. When he finally spoke, his voice was low. Controlled. But underneath, she heard it. Anger. "Daniel didn't just plan to use you as collateral," Leonard said. "Then what?" He turned to face her, and the look in his eyes made her blood run cold. "He planned for me to marry you instead." Megan's world stopped. "What?" Leonard's jaw clenched. "This wasn't plan B, Megan. It was always plan A." Megan's ears rang. The words hung in the air between them, sharp and impossible. "Say that again." Leonard didn't move from the window. His silhouette was dark against the city lights, shoulders tense, hands curled into fists at his sides. "Daniel knew I'd step in," he said quietly. "He counted on it." Megan's breath came faster. That doesn't make sense. It makes perfect sense. Leonard turned to face her, and the look in his eyes was something she'd never seen before. Not calm. Not controlled. Daniel knows me. Knows how I think. Knows I wouldn't let you take the fall for his mistakes. Her hands shook. So what, he just set this up? Disappeared on purpose so you'd. So I'd do exactly what I did, Leonard finished. Marry you. Tie my name to yours. Make you untouchable. Megan stood, her legs unsteady. Why would he want that? Leonard's jaw worked. He didn't answer right away. And that silence told her more than words could. Leonard. Because it gets him off the hook, he said finally. If you're married to me, his creditors can't touch you. Can't leverage you. Can't use you to get to him. But they can use you. Leonard's expression hardened. They can try. Megan's mind raced, trying to piece it together. Trying to find the logic in the madness. So Daniel throws me to you like I'm a problem he's outsourcing? More or less. Rage flared hot in her chest. And you just went along with it? I didn't have a choice. Everyone has a choice. Not when the alternative is watching you get destroyed. His voice cracked. Just barely. Just enough that Megan froze. Leonard looked away. Ran a hand through his hair. The gesture was so unlike him, so unguarded, that it felt like watching someone take off armor. I warned him, Leonard said quietly. 6 weeks ago. Told him to come clean. To tell you the truth. To fix it before it was too late. Megan's throat tightened. And he said he would. Leonard's laugh was bitter. He lied. She sank back onto the couch, her head spinning. 6 weeks. Leonard had known for 6 weeks that Daniel was using her. That her wedding was a trap. That the man she loved was a coward and a liar. And he'd said nothing. You could have told me, she whispered. I thought about it. But you didn't. No. Why? Leonard finally looked at her. And the vulnerability in his eyes was almost unbearable. Because I wanted to believe he'd do the right thing. Megan's chest ached. She wanted to scream at him. Wanted to throw something. Wanted to demand why loyalty to a friend mattered more than honesty to a stranger. But she couldn't. Because she understood. She'd done the same thing. Ignored the red flags. Believed the excuses. Told herself Daniel was just stressed. Just busy. Just going through something. She'd chosen hope over truth. And so had Leonard. Did you love him? The question slipped out before she could stop it. Leonard blinked. What? Daniel. Were you? She trailed off, unsure how to finish. We were friends, Leonard said carefully. Brothers, almost. I've known him since college. Pulled him out of more messes than I can count. He paused. But love? No. Not like that. Megan nodded slowly. The silence stretched. Then Leonard moved. Crossed the room and sat in the chair across from her. Close enough that she could see the exhaustion etched into his face. I should have told you, he said. The moment I knew. I should have walked up to you and said, don't marry him. Why didn't you? Because I didn't think you'd believe me. Megan's throat burned. You're probably right. Leonard's lips twitched. Almost a smile. Almost. For what it's worth, he said quietly, I didn't want it to happen this way. Then how did you want it to happen? I didn't. His gaze held hers. I wanted Daniel to grow a spine. To tell you himself. To give you the choice I couldn't. And when he didn't, I made the only choice I had left. Megan looked down at her hands. At the place where the ring had been. Do you regret it? Leonard was quiet for a long moment. Ask me again in a month. She almost laughed. It came out like a broken exhale. I don't know whether to thank you or hate you. You can do both, Leonard said. Most people do. This time she did laugh. Short and sharp and edged with hysteria. Then the laughter died, and the weight of everything crashed back down. What happens now? She asked. If Daniel planned this, if he wanted me married to you, what does he get out of it? Leonard's expression darkened. Time. For what? To run. To cover his tracks. To make sure that when everything falls apart, he's already gone. Megan's stomach twisted. And us. We clean up the mess. That's not fair. No, Leonard agreed. It's not. She stood, pacing now, unable to sit still. Her mind kept circling back to the same question. The same impossible, infuriating question. "Why didn't you just let me fail?" she asked, turning to face him. "You didn't owe me anything. You barely know me. So why step in? Why marry me? Why take on Daniel's debt and his enemies and his?" "Because I couldn't watch it happen." The words were quiet, firm, final. Megan stared at him. Leonard stood, closing the distance between them. Not touching, just present. "I've spent the last 6 weeks watching Daniel lie to you," he said. "Watching him string you along while he set you up to take the fall. And every time I saw you, at the rehearsal dinner, at the venue walkthrough, at that godforsaken brunch your mother hosted, I thought, she deserves better than this." Megan's breath hitched. "You don't even know me." "I know enough." "Like what?" Leonard's gaze didn't waver. "I know you're smart enough to see through people, but kind enough to give them the benefit of the doubt anyway. I know you laugh at terrible jokes because you don't want anyone to feel bad. I know you rearrange your schedule to make other people comfortable, even when it costs you." Her heart hammered. "How do you?" "I pay attention," Leonard said simply. "It's what I do." Megan's throat closed. She wanted to argue, to tell him he was wrong, to insist she wasn't worth the risk he'd taken. But she couldn't, because part of her, a small, desperate part, wanted to believe he was right. "I'm so angry," she whispered. "At me." "At Daniel." "At you." "At myself." Leonard nodded slowly. "That's fair. I don't know how to trust you. I'm not asking you to. Not yet." "Then what are you asking?" Leonard's hand lifted, hovered near her shoulder, almost touching but not quite. "I'm asking you to let me prove that I'm not him." Megan's vision blurred. A tear slipped down her cheek before she could stop it. Leonard's thumb caught it. Gentle, careful, and for one fragile moment, she let herself lean into the touch. Then she pulled back. "I need time," she said. "Take all you need." Megan turned away, wrapping her arms around herself. I need to understand why you stayed quiet. Why you let it get this far." Leonard was silent. When she looked back, his expression was unreadable again, but his voice was raw. "Because I was afraid." Megan frowned. "Of what?" Leonard's eyes met hers, and the answer hit her before he said it. "Of losing you before I ever had the chance to know you." The room went still. Megan's heart stopped, restarted, stumbled. "What?" But Leonard didn't answer. He just turned and walked toward his bedroom, leaving her standing alone in the silence. And Megan realized with a jolt that terrified her. She wasn't the only one who'd been trapped by Daniel's plan. Leonard had been caught too. And the question that burned through her now, sharp and relentless, was this: had he married her to save her? Or because he'd been waiting for an excuse all along? Megan didn't sleep. She lay in the guest bed staring at the ceiling, replaying Leonard's last words until they lost all meaning. By the time dawn broke, she'd convinced herself she'd imagined the vulnerability in his voice, the confession that didn't quite land as one. She was pulling on jeans when the doorbell rang. Her heart jumped. Leonard's footsteps were already moving through the penthouse. She heard the low rumble of his voice, then another voice answering. Familiar. Painfully familiar. Megan's breath caught. She opened the bedroom door and stepped into the hallway. Daniel stood in the entryway. He looked thinner, hollow-eyed. His shirt was wrinkled, his jaw shadowed with stubble. But he was here, and he was looking at her like she was the only person in the room. "Megan." His voice cracked. Thank God. She couldn't move, couldn't speak. Leonard stood between them, arms crossed, expression unreadable. "You have 5 minutes," Leonard said flatly. Daniel's eyes flicked to him. Something passed between them. Resentment, maybe. Or guilt. Then Daniel looked back at Megan. "I need to explain." Her throat tightened. "You left me at the altar." "I know." "You humiliated me in front of 200 people." "I know." Daniel stepped forward. Leonard shifted, blocking him. Daniel stopped. "But I had a reason." "There's no reason good enough." "There is." Daniel's voice turned urgent. Desperate. "I left because staying would have put you in danger." Megan's pulse spiked. "What are you talking about?" "The people I owe money to, They were watching the wedding. They told me if I went through with it, they'd come after you. Use you to make me pay. Her stomach twisted. Daniel's eyes glistened. I couldn't let that happen. So I disappeared. Made them think I'd abandoned you. That you meant nothing to me. You should have told me. I couldn't risk it. If you knew, you would have tried to help. And that would have made you a target. Megan's chest ached. It made sense. God help her, it made sense. I've been hiding, Daniel continued. Trying to figure out how to fix this without dragging you into it. And then I heard, his voice broke. I heard you married him. He looked at Leonard with something close to betrayal. Leonard didn't flinch. You said you'd protect her, Daniel said. Not marry her. Plans changed. That wasn't your call to make. You forfeited your right to make calls the moment you walked away. Daniel's jaw clenched. But he turned back to Megan. I know I hurt you. I know I should have done things differently. But everything I did to keep you safe. Megan's hands trembled. She wanted to believe him. Wanted to believe that the man she'd loved for 3 years had made an impossible choice for the right reasons. But something felt wrong. Not a lie exactly. Just incomplete. Why come back now? She asked quietly. Daniel hesitated. Because I heard you were in trouble. That Leonard had to step in because I left you vulnerable. You did leave her vulnerable, Leonard said coldly. I was trying to protect her. By making her a pawn? By keeping her out of it. Leonard stepped forward. The movement was controlled, but there was violence underneath. Restrained. Barely. You want to tell her the truth, Daniel? Or should I? Daniel went pale. I am telling the truth. Part of it. Megan's breath quickened. What's he talking about? Daniel didn't answer. Leonard's gaze stayed locked on him. Tell her about the insurance policy. The room went cold. Daniel's face drained of color. That's not. Tell her. Megan's voice shook. What insurance policy? Silence. Then Daniel exhaled. Slow. Defeated. I took out a life insurance policy. In your name. Her blood turned to ice. What? $2 million. With me as the beneficiary. Megan stumbled back. Her hand found the wall. You insured my life? It was just a precaution. A precaution for what? Daniel's voice turned pleading. In case something happened to you. In case they tried to hurt you to get to me. I wanted to make sure. You wanted to make sure you'd profit if I died. No. That's not. When did you take it out? Leonard's voice cut through like a blade. Daniel didn't answer. When Daniel? 3 months ago. The same time he'd borrowed the money. Megan's knees buckled. Leonard caught her. His hand on her elbow, steadying her. She jerked away. Don't touch me. Leonard stepped back immediately. Hands raised. No argument. Megan looked at Daniel. At the man she'd almost married. The man she'd trusted with everything. You used me, she whispered. No. You insured my life like I was an asset. Megan, please. Get out. Daniel's face crumpled. Let me explain. Get out. I love you. You don't get to say that. Her voice cracked. Shattered. You don't get to stand there and say you love me after. She couldn't finish. Couldn't breathe. Daniel reached for her. Leonard moved faster. He didn't shove. Didn't threaten. Just stood between them. Immovable. She asked you to leave. Daniel's expression twisted. Anger. Hurt. Desperation. This isn't over, he said. Leonard's voice dropped. Lethal and soft. Yes, it is. Daniel stared at him. Then at Megan. She couldn't look at him. Couldn't bear to see whatever plea was written on his face. Finally, Daniel turned and walked to the door. He paused. Looked back one last time. I never meant to hurt you. Megan didn't answer. The door clicked shut. Silence flooded the room. Megan stood frozen, her chest heaving, her mind spinning. Leonard didn't move. Didn't speak. Just waited. And after what felt like hours, Megan's voice broke the quiet. Did you know? Leonard's jaw tightened. About the policy? Yes. A pause. Then quietly, yes. Her eyes burned. How long? A week. And you didn't tell me. I was trying to confirm it before I... You should have told me. I know. Megan pressed her palms against her eyes, trying to hold herself together, trying not to fall apart. I don't know what's real anymore, she whispered. Leonard's voice was closer now, gentler. I know. She dropped her hands, looked at him. How do I know you're not lying too? Leonard's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Pain maybe. Or acceptance. You don't, he said simply. Megan's breath hitched. Then why should I trust you? Leonard held her gaze. And when he answered, his voice was raw, honest, unbearably real. Because I'm the only one who's ever told you the truth, even when it hurt. Megan's chest constricted. She wanted to argue, wanted to push back. But she couldn't. Because he was right. Leonard had been the only one who hadn't lied. The only one who'd protected her without asking for anything in return. The only one who'd let her be angry. And that terrified her more than anything Daniel had done. Because if Leonard was telling the truth, then Daniel had never loved her at all. And everything she believed about her life had been a carefully constructed lie. Megan spent the next 3 days in Leonard's penthouse feeling like a ghost. She ate when he reminded her, slept when exhaustion finally won, answered her mother's increasingly frantic texts with lies that tasted like ash. Everything's fine. I'm happy. Don't worry. On the 4th morning, she woke to find Leonard sitting in the living room with 2 coffee cups and an envelope. We need to talk, he said. Megan's stomach dropped. About what? He slid the envelope across the table. She opened it. Annulment papers. Her breath caught. I had my lawyer draw them up, Leonard said quietly. Sign them, and this marriage ends. Quietly. Cleanly. You walk away with your name intact and enough security that Daniel's mess can't touch you. Megan stared at the documents. Her hands shook. You want out. I want you to have a choice. She looked up. Leonard's expression was calm. Unreadable. But his hands were clenched on his knees. What happens if I sign? You're free. You go back to your life. I handle Daniel and his creditors. You never have to see me again. The words should have felt like relief. They felt like loss. And if I don't? Leonard's jaw tightened. Then we figure out what this becomes. This, us. The word hung between them. Heavy. Impossible. Megan's chest ached. I don't even know what us means. Neither do I, Leonard admitted. But I'm willing to find out if you are. She set the papers down. Stood. Paced to the window. The city stretched below. Endless. Indifferent. I spent 3 years building a life with Daniel, she said quietly. Planning a future. Believing in something. Leonard didn't respond. And now I find out it was all fake. That I was just a piece in a game I didn't know I was playing. You weren't a piece to me. Megan turned. Then what was I? Leonard stood. Crossed the room. Stopped just close enough that she could see the tension in his shoulders. You were the only real thing in a room full of lies. Her throat burned. You don't know me, Leonard. I know enough. You know what you've observed. That's not the same thing. Then let me learn the rest. Megan's breath hitched. Why? Because when I watched you walk down that aisle, I didn't see someone who needed saving. I saw someone who deserved better than what she was walking toward. Tears stung her eyes. That's not a reason to stay married. No, Leonard agreed. But it's a reason to try. Megan looked away. Her reflection stared back from the window. Pale. Fragile. She barely recognized herself. I don't know who I am anymore, she whispered. Leonard's voice softened. Then figure it out. With or without me. But don't let Daniel's choices define you. The words hit like a punch. Because that's exactly what she'd been doing. Letting Daniel's betrayal rewrite her entire sense of self. Letting his lies make her question everything she thought she knew about love and trust and worth. She'd been so focused on what she'd lost that she hadn't stopped to ask what she wanted. I don't want to be someone who needs rescuing, she said finally. You're not. Then what am I? Leonard stepped closer. Close enough that she could feel the warmth radiating from him. You're someone who got dealt a bad hand and refused to fold. Megan's chest tightened. She looked up at him. Really looked. At the sharp lines of his face. The control he wore like armor. The way his eyes never quite hid the weight he carried. What do you want from this? She asked. Leonard's expression flickered. Vulnerable. Just for a second. I want you to choose yourself. That's not an answer. It's the only one that matters. Megan's pulse hammered. You're not going to fight for me? No. The honesty stung. Why not? Because you've spent 3 years with someone who made every decision for you. Who told you what to want and when to want it. Leonard's voice dropped. I won't do that to you. Megan's breath caught. So this is it? Sign the papers or stay married, and either way you walk away clean. Either way, I make sure you're safe, Leonard corrected. What you do after that is up to you. Tears slipped down her cheeks. She hated how much she wanted him to argue. To plead. To give her a reason that didn't require her to be brave. But he didn't. He just stood there. Patient. Steady. Waiting. And Megan realized with a jolt that terrified and thrilled her in equal measure. This was what respect looked like. Not control. Not persuasion. Just space. Space to choose. Space to hurt. Space to become whoever she was underneath the wreckage. I need time, she said. Leonard nodded. Take it. I might choose wrong. There's no wrong choice. Just the one you can live with. Megan wiped her eyes. Looked down at the papers on the table. Her future. Right there in black and white. Sign, and go back to the life she knew. Stay, and step into something unknown. Both options scared her. But only one felt like surrender. She picked up the envelope. Folded it. Set it aside. Leonard's eyes widened. Just barely. I'm not signing, Megan said quietly. Not yet. Okay. I'm not saying I'm staying either. I know. I just need to figure out who I am when I'm not trying to be what someone else needs. Leonard's expression softened. That's fair. Megan crossed her arms, trying to hold herself together. And I need you to stop being so calm about this. A flicker of surprise. What? You're too controlled. Too perfect. It makes me feel like I'm the only one falling apart. Leonard stared at her. Then slowly he exhaled. And when he spoke, his voice was rough. Unsteady. I'm terrified. Megan blinked. Of what? That you'll sign those papers. That you'll walk out. That I'll lose the only chance I've ever had to know you. Her heart stopped. Restarted. Stumbled. Leonard. He stepped back. Ran a hand through his hair. The gesture shattered his composure completely. I've spent 6 weeks watching you from a distance. Telling myself it wasn't my place to interfere. And now you're here, and I still don't know if I did the right thing. Megan's throat closed. But I do know this, Leonard continued. If you leave, I won't stop you. I won't chase you. Because you deserve to choose freely. His eyes met hers. Even if that choice breaks me. Megan couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. All she could do was stand there, drowning in the weight of his honesty. And wonder. What kind of man offers you freedom when he wants you to stay? Daniel called on the 7th day. Megan stared at her phone, watching his name flash across the screen. Leonard was in his office. The door closed. She could hear the low murmur of a conference call through the walls. She answered. Megan. Daniel's voice was rough. Tired. Thank you for picking up. She didn't speak. I know I don't deserve another chance, he continued. I know I hurt you. But I need you to hear me out. Just once. Her chest tightened. I'm listening. Meet me. Tonight. There's a cafe on 5th and Madison. I'll explain everything. The whole truth this time. You've had plenty of chances to tell the truth. I know. But I'm asking for one more. Megan closed her eyes. Felt the pull of old habits. Old hopes. The version of herself that wanted to believe people could change. Why should I? Because you loved me once, Daniel said quietly. And I think part of you still does. The words landed like stones. She wanted to deny it. Wanted to say he was wrong. But she couldn't. Because he wasn't entirely wrong. There was still a part of her that remembered the man she'd fallen for. The one who'd made her laugh. Who'd held her when she cried. Who'd promised her forever. Even if that man had never really existed. 1 hour, she said. Thank you. She hung up. And when she turned, Leonard was standing in the doorway. His expression was unreadable. You're going. It wasn't a question. Megan nodded. I need to hear what he has to say. Leonard didn't move. Didn't argue. Just watched her with those ice blue eyes that saw too much. Do you want me to come with you? No. A flicker of something crossed his face. Pain, maybe. Or resignation. Okay. Megan grabbed her coat. Paused at the door. I'm not going back to him. Leonard's jaw tightened. You don't owe me an explanation. I know. But I'm giving you one anyway. She left before he could respond. The cafe was small. Quiet. Tucked between a bookstore and a dry cleaner. Daniel sat in the back corner, hands wrapped around a coffee cup. He stood when he saw her. Tried to smile. It didn't reach his eyes. Megan sat across from him. Didn't take off her coat. You have 1 hour. Daniel nodded. Swallowed hard. I've been running, he said. From the debt. From the people I owe. From everything. I know. But I'm done running. Megan's pulse quickened. What does that mean? It means I turned myself in. Confessed everything. The loans. The fraud. The insurance policy. His voice cracked. I'm facing charges. Probably prison. Her breath caught. When? Sentencing is in 3 weeks. Silence settled between them. Megan's hands trembled in her lap. Why are you telling me this? Daniel reached across the table. Stopped just short of touching her hand. Because I wanted you to know that I'm trying to make it right. That I'm taking responsibility. That doesn't undo what you did. I know. His eyes glistened. But I need you to know I never stopped loving you. Megan's throat burned. Love isn't enough, Daniel. I know that too. He pulled his hand back. But I had to say it. Before I lost the chance. She looked at him. Really looked. At the man she'd almost married. The man who'd shattered her trust. The man who'd loved her in the only broken way he knew how. And she felt it. The grief. Not for what they'd had, but for what they'd never really been. I forgive you, she said quietly. Daniel's face crumpled. Megan. But I can't be with you. His breath hitched. Because of Leonard? Because of me. The words settled. Final. Daniel nodded slowly. Wiped his eyes. He's a good man, he said. Better than me. That's not why I'm choosing him. Then why? Megan stood. Pulled her coat tighter. Because he gave me a choice. And you never did. She walked out before he could answer. The night air was cold. Sharp. Megan walked 6 blocks before she realized she was crying. Not sobbing. Just silent tears that slipped down her cheeks and disappeared into the darkness. She pulled out her phone. Leonard answered on the first ring. Are you okay? His voice was steady. Calm. But she heard the tension underneath. I'm coming home, she said. A pause. Okay. Leonard. Yeah. I'm choosing you. Silence. Then, so quietly she almost missed it. Why? Megan stopped walking. Looked up at the city lights bleeding into the night sky. Because you let me be broken. And you didn't try to fix me. Leonard's breath caught. She heard it through the phone. I'm on my way, he said. No. Stay there. I need to walk. Megan. I'm safe. I promise. Another pause. Then, okay. She hung up. And she walked. Past couples holding hands. Past late-night diners and corner stores. Past the life she'd imagined and into the one she was choosing. When she finally reached the penthouse, Leonard was waiting by the door. He didn't ask questions. Didn't demand explanations. He just opened his arms. And Megan stepped into them. His embrace was firm. Grounding. Safe. She pressed her face against his chest and let herself break. Leonard held her through it. One hand in her hair. The other steady on her back. I've got you, he murmured. And for the first time in weeks, Megan believed it. When her tears finally slowed, she pulled back. Looked up at him. Leonard's jaw was tight. His eyes red-rimmed. You're crying, she whispered. I thought you weren't coming back. Her heart cracked. I told you I was choosing you. People change their minds. Megan reached up. Cupped his face. I'm not people. Leonard's eyes searched hers. Then he leaned down. Slowly. Giving her time to pull away. She didn't. His lips brushed hers. Tentative. Asking. Megan answered. The kiss was soft. Achingly gentle. Nothing like the performative one at the altar. This was real. When they broke apart, Leonard rested his forehead against hers. I don't know how to do this, he admitted. Neither do I. What if I mess it up? Then we figure it out together. Leonard's hands tightened on her waist. I can't promise you easy. I don't want easy, Megan said. I want honest. He nodded. Slowly. I can do honest. Megan smiled. Small. Fragile. But real. Then that's enough. They stood there, holding each other in the quiet. Outside, the city hummed. Inside, something new was beginning. Not perfect. Not simple. But theirs. And as Megan closed her eyes and let herself lean into Leonard's warmth, one question whispered through her mind. Could love rebuilt from wreckage ever be stronger than love that had never been tested? She didn't know yet. But for the first time, she was willing to find out. 3 months later, Megan stood in front of a different mirror. Not the one in Leonard's guest room. Not the one that had reflected a bride in shock. This one was in a small studio apartment in Brooklyn. Hers. The walls were bare except for a single photograph, her and Leonard at a charity gala last month. His hand on the small of her back. Her smile genuine but guarded. They looked like a couple. They were trying to be one. It was harder than either of them had expected. Megan pulled on her jacket and checked her phone. One new message from Leonard. Running late. Meeting went long. Still good for dinner? She typed back, always. Then paused. Added, take your time. She meant it. 3 months ago, she would have spiraled. Would have questioned whether he was pulling away. Whether she'd made the wrong choice. Now she understood that space wasn't distance. It was breathing room. The doorbell rang. Megan frowned. Leonard had a key. And he'd said he was running late. She checked the peephole. Her mother. Megan's stomach tightened. She opened the door. Patricia Wheeler stood in the hallway wearing pearls and disappointment in equal measure. Mom. Don't mum me. Patricia swept past her into the apartment. Looked around with thinly veiled disapproval. This is where you're living now? It's temporary. Everything with you is temporary lately. Megan closed the door. Leaned against it. What do you want? Patricia turned. Her expression softened. Just barely. I want to understand why my daughter is living in a shoebox instead of the penthouse she's entitled to. I'm not entitled to anything, Mom. Leonard and I are taking things slow. You're married. On paper. That's not how marriage works. Megan crossed her arms. It's how ours works. Patricia's lips pressed into a thin line. Then she sighed. I don't understand you anymore. I know. You had a perfectly good life planned. A beautiful wedding. A man who loved you. A man who ensured my life for profit. Patricia flinched. That was unfortunate, she said carefully. But Daniel made a mistake. People make mistakes. He didn't make a mistake, Mom. He made a calculated decision. There's a difference. Patricia looked away. Smoothed her skirt. And Leonard? What kind of decision is he? Megan's throat tightened. He's the kind who gives me space to figure out who I am. You already know who you are. No. Megan's voice was firm. I know who you raised me to be. Who Daniel wanted me to be. But I'm still learning who I actually am underneath all that. Silence settled between them. Patricia's eyes glistened. I just want you to be happy. I'm working on it. Are you? Because from where I'm standing, you look lonely. The word hit harder than Megan expected. Because it was true. She was lonely sometimes. Even with Leonard. Even with the life she was building. But it was a different kind of loneliness. Not the aching emptiness of being unseen. The growing pains of becoming. I'd rather be lonely and honest than comfortable and fake, Megan said quietly. Patricia's expression crumpled. Then, unexpectedly, she crossed the room and pulled Megan into a hug. Megan stiffened. Then slowly relaxed. I'm trying, sweetheart, Patricia whispered. To understand. To accept. But it's hard. I know. Do you love him? Megan pulled back. Looked at her mother. I'm learning to. Patricia nodded slowly. That's honest at least. She kissed Megan's cheek and left without another word. Megan stood in the quiet of her apartment, her mother's perfume lingering in the air. Her phone buzzed. Leonard. Just finished. Be there in 20. She smiled. Typed. I'll be ready. By the time Leonard arrived, Megan had changed into something nicer. Not fancy. Just intentional. He stood in her doorway with takeout bags and an expression that said he'd had a long day. Chinese or Thai, he asked. Surprise me. He stepped inside, set the bags on her tiny kitchen counter. Then he pulled her into his arms. No words. Just presence. Megan let herself sink into it. Rough day, she murmured against his chest. Daniel's sentencing came through. Her breath caught. She pulled back. And 5 years. Eligible for parole in 3. Megan's chest ached. She'd known it was coming. Had prepared herself for it. But hearing it still hurt. How do you feel? Leonard asked. She considered. Sad. Relieved. Angry. All of it. That's fair. She looked up at him. How do you feel? Leonard's jaw tightened. Like I should have seen it sooner. Should have stopped him before it got this far. It's not your fault. I know. But it feels like it anyway. Megan cupped his face. Made him look at her. You saved me, Leonard. You don't get to carry guilt for what Daniel chose. His eyes searched hers. I'm still learning how to let go. Me too. They stood there, holding each other. Then Leonard leaned down and kissed her. Slow. Tender. A promise more than a passion. When they broke apart, he rested his forehead against hers. I don't know if I'm doing this right, he admitted. Doing what? This. Being someone you can count on without being someone who controls you. Megan's heart clenched. You're doing fine. It doesn't feel fine. It feels like I'm constantly walking a tightrope. That's because you are. She smiled softly. We both are. But that's what makes it real. Leonard's expression softened. I want to ask you something. Okay. Move in with me. Megan's breath caught. Leonard. Not because I think you should. Not because it makes sense on paper. His hands framed her face. Because I want to wake up next to you. I want to learn how you take your coffee and what you look like when you're reading. I want the messy, complicated, imperfect version of this. Tears pricked her eyes. What if it doesn't work? Then we tried. What if I'm not ready? Then we wait. Megan's throat closed. She wanted to say yes. Wanted to leap. But part of her was still afraid. Afraid of losing herself again. Afraid of choosing comfort over growth. Afraid of confusing safety with love. Can I think about it? She whispered. Leonard's expression didn't falter. Of course. You're not upset? No. He kissed her forehead. I'm patient. Megan exhaled. Let herself lean into him. I don't deserve you. That's not true. You gave up so much to protect me. Leonard pulled back. Looked at her seriously. I didn't give up anything, Megan. I chose you. There's a difference. The words landed soft and sure. Megan felt something shift inside her. Not fear. Not doubt. Just clarity. Ask me again in a month, she said. Leonard smiled. Small but real. Okay. They ate dinner on her tiny couch. Legs tangled, conversation easy. And when Leonard left that night, Megan stood at her window and watched the city lights flicker. She thought about Daniel. About the prison cell he'd wake up in tomorrow and all the tomorrows after. She thought about her mother. About the gap between expectation and reality. She thought about Leonard. About the careful way he loved her. The space he gave. The patience he practiced. And she thought about herself. About the woman she'd been 3 months ago. Desperate for approval. Terrified of being alone. Willing to shrink herself to fit someone else's vision. That woman was gone. Not healed. Not whole. But becoming. Megan didn't know if she'd move in with Leonard next month. Didn't know if they'd make it a year. Or 5. Or forever. But she knew this. She wasn't choosing him because she needed saving. She was choosing him because he made space for her to save herself. And that, she realized, was the only kind of love worth building. Not the kind that rescued. The kind that respected. Not the kind that promised perfection. The kind that promised truth. Megan pulled out her phone. Typed a message, I love you. Not because you're perfect, but because you're real. Sent it. 3 dots appeared immediately. Then, That's the best thing anyone's ever said to me. Megan smiled. And for the first time since she'd stood at that altar in a dress that wasn't hers and a life that didn't fit, she felt like herself. Imperfect. Uncertain. But finally, blessedly free. The question that lingered wasn't whether she'd find happiness. It was whether she'd recognize it when it arrived wearing work boots instead of glass slippers. And standing in her small apartment with takeout containers on the counter and a man who loved her enough to let her breathe. Megan thought maybe, just maybe, she already had. If this story stayed with you, if any part of Megan's journey felt familiar, let me know in the comments. Would you have stayed or walked away? Don't forget to like this story if it moved you, subscribe for more deeply human love stories, and tell me where you're listening from tonight. You're not just watching a story here, you're part of this space.